and fired into the sun. Until Jody Allen releases the team, will just amount to nothing going forward. Let Phil Knight take over. Yes, the guy that's on the doorstep of dying, let him take over. That's a good idea. That's a great idea, folks. Hold on. Congratulations. You just had the dumbest thought imaginable. You want to go through what we're going through again. That's what you want to do. That is your... Look, Phil Knight's 45 years old, 50 years old. Get the damn thing done.
But the thing is, it wasn't just Phil Knight. It was Phil Knight was part of a group.
Yeah, with Smolinski. But again, that's not the same money. That's not the same people. That's
right.
not Phil Knight's people.
It's not the same money, but it's also not, once the owner dies, passing it down to his sister who doesn't know jack squat about basketball or anything.
It's his son instead,
and
who doesn't.
And the other minority partners and the other partners.
Who don't know anything about basketball.
But they know how to run a team.
Do they?
Well...
Because they have money invested in the Dodgers?
Well,
no.
Jody Allen didn't have money invested in squat. She had a rich brother.
Yeah. And guess where all these other people got their money from?
Yeah, well, I know. Yes, we got the Mara family and the Giants. I get it. Look, Jody at this point
it doesn't, Jeff. It doesn't fix anything. Look, if they were John J. Fishering this and they were cheap as hell, yes, I would be screaming it to the high heavens.
Well, which is part of the reason why I know they're not going to fire Chauncey Billups this season. Because they don't want to pay another coach to come in and do it.
Which, again...
He's a lame duck coach, and we knew that before the season.
And again, what does firing the coach do now? You know that you're going to bring in another coach at the end of this year. Why bring him in now and have him take it on the chin with a bunch of guys that probably aren't going to be here in a year? What vision are you setting? What tone are you setting? What are you building around if you don't have the centerpiece building block
that makes sense.
To go forward?
But which means that they have already waited too long. They have already est too long and didn't get off the pot.
I don't think that's the case because let's put it this way. If they knew Shaden was the guy, I think they would have made the move. You know what I mean? You mean with Billups? Yeah, I think let's say Shaden doesn't get hurt last year, the core injury isn't a thing, and Shaden starts to show you, he might be it. He might be the guy. Then I think you see a shift. Then I think you can justify, okay, we can change this up, and yeah, even though we're going to tank, we're going to kind of wiggle our way towards this, right? And again, I don't think there was a good option heading into this season, either keeping or letting Chauncey Billups go. Mm-hmm. I don't think either was a great option because one, you have the lame duck side of it. And and I think a lot of fans take that a lot more than what it actually is for the players. Kind of what we were talking about before we went to the break, the idea of how they actually look at Chauncey. Again, talking to them, the players didn't seem to really think that that was an option on the table. Mm-hmm. So that they're insulated from that stuff. Right. And I think as fans, we look at that like, they're not going to buy in. They're not going to do this. Do you think that the new voice, when they know what the deal is this season, is suddenly going to motivate them?
I guess to be fair, maybe I've been a bit myopic in that I think that this is a recent issue. It doesn't trace back close to almost a decade back. In terms of like butterfly effect and sliding doors and who they let run this organization for far longer than they ever should have.
Yeah. And
a lot of that was after Paul died.
Well, a lot of that was why Paul was alive.
Yes.
That's my point.
Yeah. So
they had the great owner.
Whether you want to call it butterfly effect or sliding doors or what have you. I mean, we've been Look, we've been on this highway with seemingly zero exit ramps for about 54 miles now, and it still feels like we got about another 154 before we find an off-ramp.
This is what I told people when they made this decision. It's gonna suck.
Yeah.
That was the whole, you're not ready for this. You're not built for this. But I'm glad you brought up the Neil Olshey stuff because that's what I point to. Paul Allen was the guy that everybody said was the great owner, right? And he was. Spent all the money. Remember spend Paul Allen's money. Did everything, put multiple teams that were on the floor that could be title contenders. He also hired Neil Olshey. He also empowered Neil Olshey for years. Yeah. So it's this whole idea of ownership being this thing that fixes everything is not. I
think, okay, this might be a stretch here, but bear with me. Mm-hmm. I think some of that with Paul... One, hiring Neil Olshey and sticking with him so long was part of a pendulum effect that we see so often, sorry to bring this up, in the world of politics. in that you have the pendulum that swings one way for a bit and things look great for a bit. And then all of a sudden people realize that there are issues with that. And they want, no, we want the pendulum to go back this other way. And it gets to that point for a little bit. It's like, oh, it looks fantastic again for a little while. And all of a sudden, oh, no, wait, there's big old holes in this. So what because like with Paul, it started even going back to the Jailblazer days, right? Where he didn't care what he spent. He gave basically carte blanche to Trader Bob and Steve Patterson and whatnot. And they brought in anybody and everybody that they could. And they were just trying to build an all-star team, basically, or a fantasy team. And then it came back to, okay, well, maybe we need to tighten in these reins a little bit. And we got Neil Olshey, and he's like, well, yeah, with Al-Farouq Amino at the 4, we project as a 54-win team, and trying to get all these former, because let's face it, Neil Olshey's forte was trying to find top former draft picks that have been discarded.
Oh yeah, no,
and create them into something.
Redraft players.
Yes,
that's
it's like
100%.
It felt like those were kind of big pendulum swings, and then unfortunately Paul Allen died before that pendulum swing went back in a different direction, and we just kind of got stuck up at that one side of the pendulum. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. To kind of get away from the ownership stuff, because it's so many people. Again, it's like blaming Chauncey Billups for all of the problems right now. People want to point that you're the bad one. It's like,
well, I made no bones about it. I didn't like the hire in the first place.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. It's so much
because
more.
It's about player development and such. Why do you bring a guy with one season of experience on a bench?
The Vancouver Vortex line. I'm okay with losing. I want to see guys getting better. Shea, Scoot, Denny, but they don't look like they are. Well, Shea.
That's kind of been my point.
Well, Shea was been injured.
Mm-hmm.
He has essentially not played for a year. So I don't know how you can say that he hasn't gotten better. Or like it's been
we just haven't seen
3 games,
which is what I said.
Yeah.
We don't know what we got.
Scoot last year was one of the worst players in the entire NBA,
which is great as a number 3 pick.
Look, S happens.
Yeah.
Okay. Does he look like one of the worst players in the NBA this year?
I mean, that would be harsh, but no.
Okay. Is that improvement?
No,
I'm saying like
no, I get it, but yes,
okay.
That's also a bar low enough to trip over.
But that's not an organizational thing.
Yeah,
that's a Scoot thing.
Is it a Scoot? Is it a player development coach thing?
That is a player. Look, that is a player thing. You can talk about organizations developing guys all you want. It's player. Look, having a coach that helps. Look, the one I'll always go back to because he's the outlier is Wes Matthews.
Mm-hmm.
Wes Matthews came in the league and all he could do was defend.
Mm-hmm.
He was getting taken off the floor in closing minutes of games because he couldn't shoot. He goes to assistant coach Jeff Hornacek and goes, teach me how to shoot. Break down my jumper and teach me how to shoot.
That's a good dude to go to learn how to shoot.
But again, this is Wes Matthews working like a maniac.
Yeah.
And I mean, Hornacek didn't work with him at first. Mm-hmm. He bugged him and bugged him and bugged him and bugged him and bugged him. He just kept going and going and going. I remember talking to Dame and Ann about this, and not just about Wes, but when they figured out how to work and how to develop as NBA players. Like Jason Quick of The Athletic wrote an article about Ant and Dame and Ant's trainer, Phil Beckner. And Phil basically throwing Ant out of a training session.
Mm-hmm.
Because he asked him if he was ready to work. He's like, hold on, let me get some cereal first. And, yeah, I mean, and Phil basically said, get the bleep out.
That's because, yeah,
but
not a good look.
But he was a kid, and he didn't know what college athletes don't. And this is basketball, NFL, all of them. Like the way things change when you get to the professional side is just so different. And understanding how to work and how to develop and what you need to do.
Yeah,
plenty of guys.
Well, he didn't go to college.
IMG, but that's again, so many guys are also coming in so young. But beyond that. So many guys are successful in the NBA in spite of not working as hard as they need to be stars.
Mm-hmm.
And that's we've talked about this before. It's the kind of the gross side of sports, because people think that if I was in his position, I would work that hard. It's like, no, you wouldn't, because I know in a job that you may love right now, you don't work that hard now. So just because there's more money on the line? No, that's not human nature. A lot of times you do it just what you need to get by. And a lot of guys. Look, I'll go sideways here. Maurice Harkless just happened to be good at basketball.
Mm-hmm.
He tried to make a comeback with the remix, and he's like, I'm not about this life.
Yeah.
Because he knew he had to work and sacrifice and really grind it out to get there. And he's like,
right.
Like they asked him to play some small ball 5 because in the G League, there's just not a lot of 5s, and they were short because they had sent a couple of their bigs up to the main team. Mm-hmm. And he's like, after that, he's like, I'm out. I'm out. Because That's the thing is like so much. And again, that's not to throw shade at Maurice. It's just that's how it is in professional sports. Like
Right.
it's hard to fathom how good some players are. And if you're talking about the development side of things, number one, we are 11 games into the season. If you're trying to say this player hasn't developed,
No.
that's an insane thing.
Yes.
Because if you turn it on its head, does Tumani Kamara look better than he did last year? Yes, very much so.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Chauncey Billups developing him, or is that two taking it on his own and working this offseason? Because if it's not one, then it's the other.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, then why didn't it work for the other guys? Why? Not because they're bad, not because they didn't work hard enough, because development isn't linear. You have to take this stuff in big, big chunks. And that's why when a guy like Shaden Sharp basically misses a year,
Mm-hmm.
it's a problem because it's such a setback in the development.
Yeah. I just like you bring up too, who's a great player. He has fantastic tools on many ends of the floor. The end product that we're looking for, two, is not going to be a starter, or he might be like a defensive starter that sees 20, 25 minutes on the court. But if you're looking at him as one of your top 4 or 5 guys, then I'm sorry, no offense to two, but you're in trouble.
Look, the Blazers broadcast compared him to some version of Jimmy Butler the other day, like early in his career.
Okay.
And if he goes down that path and he's that 1 in a million like Wes Matthews,
Look,
hell
I'll
yeah.
take that. Absolutely.
Look,
If
but
that's the case, you betcha, and I'll eat this pad of Post-its right here.
No, and we'll need that for later.
Yeah.
But here, we've kind of gone back and forth on this for a while. We'll revisit this in a little bit.